Never before in the history of mankind has the world stage been so perfectly set for the return of Jesus Christ. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Phil Cooper, coming to you live from the studios at Until He Returns Bible Prophecy Ministry. Hey, welcome to the show. My goal today is to help you understand the times that we're living in as you're looking through the lens of Bible prophecy. And what a show we have for you today. We are going to be talking about a movement that's taken place in the nation of Israel with the non-believing Jewish folks, and they are recognizing the times that we're living in, and they have begun to look for and prepare for the Messiah. This is exciting times. This is something we have not seen in our lifetime, and this is a very exciting time. So stay tuned to today's show. You want to hear this. When even the Jewish folks start to stand up and say, I think it's time that we start looking for our Messiah, and they start pointing to signs of the Bible. This is exciting times. Well, let me give you a couple of updates and we'll dig right into today's lesson. The updates are right from our website at untilhereturnsforyou.info. That's www.untilhereturns4u.info. You can get all of our ministry updates out there. The Statement of Faith is out there. All of our archived radio programs are there. And we've opened up that vault for you. We want you to go out and listen to those, use them for personal Bible study, use them for group setting, small group setting, Wednesday night, church night, Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening church. Use those lessons. They are out there for your taking. So the vault's open to you. Also, if you would like, you can sign up for our newsletter. It is a free electronic newsletter that gets delivered to your email box. You can simply type in your email address and we will send that to you on a periodic basis. Also, if you have any questions at all about the ministry, we want you to reach out to us, and you can send us an email at untilhereturns4u @gmail.com. Once again, untilhereturns4u @gmail.com. And then, of course, lastly, you can always find us out there on Facebook. You simply go to the search bar and type in Until He Returns, and you will find us out there. And we want you to follow along with all the other tens of thousands of people around the globe that follow us on a daily basis. We welcome you to that venue as well. All right, well, let's start talking about this movement that's taking place in the nation of Israel. And it's the Jewish people who have started to recognize the end of times Bible prophecies that are coming to life, and they have begun to make preparations for the Messiah. Now, we all know as the believers in Jesus Christ that the Messiah has been here. The Jews have rejected him. This is in Romans chapter 11. You can read this. And then because of their rejection of him, the gospel was taken to us, the Gentiles. So I'm praising God for that moment. But for the last 2,000 years now, the Jews have been looking forward to their Messiah. We as the church have been looking forward to the return of our Messiah. And so now we're going to go through some things that there's this giant movement, massive movement of if you want to call it philosophy or just a movement towards, hey, we're living in these end days. And then they start pointing back to the scriptures to prove this. And I've got 10 of these things that are coming directly out of Israel this last week. And it is talking about all of the Bible passages. Let's go to Isaiah 41, verses 12 through 14. This is talking about Israel is going to prevail over their enemies. Now, keep in mind, this was written between 701, something like that, and 681 BC. It was not fulfilled until the late 1900s. And in this passage, this prophet Isaiah said God would help Israel during the times of conflict with their enemies if the people have faith in God. So you go back to 1948 and then 1967, 1973, and there's so much supernatural movement of God during those times that he established Israel as a nation again. And even the Jews are looking back going, there's no way we should have survived those attacks. We were outnumbered 50-1, in some cases 500-1. And even the Jews are starting to say, this is a sign that God is real that our prophecy of the return of the Messiah is coming. And so now we've got this prophecy. It's found its way into fulfillment, or at least partial fulfillment. And there's scholars that believe that a time will come when all of Israel's enemies are going to be destroyed. But that's not what that particular passage is talking about. So in that passage it says, though you search for your enemies, you will not find them. Those who wage war against you will be as nothing at all. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you. Do not be afraid, O worm Jacob, O little Israel, for I myself will help you, declares the Lord, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. And so now the Jews are looking at that and saying, let's look back at 1973. Let's look back at 1967. Let's look back at 1948, these major milestones in the life of Israel. And they're saying, who else could have protected us but God? And then they start to say, if that prophecy is real, I wonder how many other prophecies are real. And they're going through the Old Testament. They're starting to just rip it apart, tear it apart, and find out, are there other prophecies that God said would come true that have come true? One of them that it's led them to is the book of Amos. So we were in Isaiah. Now we're in the book of Amos. This was written about 750 BC. This too was fulfilled in the late 1900s, and it's the ruins of Israel will be rebuilt. So if you go to Israel today, you can go to the old ancient ruins. They are rebuilt. And in Amos 9:11 through 13, the prophet said that God would restore the land of David. King David ruled Israel from about 1000 BC to about 970 BC. So the land of David, or which is called Israel, was conquered and destroyed by the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Romans. And this land has been in ruin for much of the past 2,000 years. Now these Jews who were scattered in the diaspora, or the diaspora, throughout the entire world, they did not come home till 1948. And when they began to return, they came in huge, large numbers. In the last 69 years, the largest concentration of Jews on the planet now has become the nation of Israel. And since then, they have been rebuilding all of their ancient cities. Amos said that they would be continuous planting and harvesting during those times too. And that's what's going on. If you drive across the nation of Israel today, it looks like you're driving across the Midwest in America. It is green and lush. Even the desert itself is coming to life. It's an amazing statistic to see how much exports of produce that the Jews have. It's incredible. Through these advanced farming and irrigation techniques, they've turned barren land into productive farmland. And today Israel is a source of food for many, many of its neighbors. And here in Amos 9:11 through 13, listen to this prophecy. It says, in that day, I will restore David's fallen tent. I will repair its broken places, restore its ruins, and build it as it used to be. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman and the planter by the one treading grapes. New wine will drip from the mountains and flow from the hills. This is prophetic, and it is being fulfilled if it's not already fulfilled. And guess again, or guess who again is the one saying this? This isn't me bringing this to you. This is a movement coming out of Israel by the Jewish people. They are the ones realizing that when these signs start to take place, they better look up because their Messiah is soon to return. And we move on into the book of Ezekiel. Now, once again, we're still in the Old Testament. This is where the Jews want to hang out. They want to hang out in the Old Testament. But Ezekiel prophesied prosperity for the modern day nation of Israel. You can read that in Ezekiel 36:11. This is where Ezekiel said that there would come a time when Israel would be more prosperous than it was in the past. The Bible describes Israel as being a prosperous nation during the time of King David and King Solomon. So that was 3,000 years ago, though. But Ezekiel knew a very different Israel. In Ezekiel's day, he lived about 2,600 years ago. The northern kingdom of Israel had already been decimated by the Assyrians, and the southern kingdom, which was called Judah, was being destroyed by the Babylonians. And so in all this time that's followed, and all these destructions, the Jews have rebuilt the city of Jerusalem, but their homeland was destroyed again by the Romans. That's the last time it was destroyed. That was about 1,900 years ago. And since then, a majority of Jews have lived in exile. That's what we keep calling the diaspora. But all of a sudden, in the last 69 years now, millions and millions of Jews have gone back home and made aliyah, have gone back and made pilgrimage and moved home from around the world. And today Israel is again an independent nation, just like it was under King David. And believe it or not, it's one of the world's most prosperous countries. They have one of the most thriving stock markets, one of the most thriving economies. They are now second only to Silicon Valley in California when it comes to technology, and they are soon to surpass that. So all of the technology that you're using today, cell phones and televisions and microwave ovens, it all came out of the nation of Israel. And Ezekiel prophesied that they would have prosperity. If you go to Tel Aviv, Israel today, you would not recognize where you were even at. You would think you're standing in New York City. They are one of the most prosperous nations on the entire planet, and this all happened in the last 69 years. There's also a company that is called Zion Oil, who has begun to dig for oil in this nation. And they said up until now, the joke in Israel has always been, couldn't have Abraham chosen a little different path? Why did he have to wind up in the only Middle Eastern country where there is no oil? Well, guess what they found in Israel now? Some of the largest oil reserves on the planet, as well as some of the largest natural gas reserves on the entire planet. And it's coming right out of Israel, folks. This is Bible prophecy coming to light in your lifetime. Remember this Ezekiel passage. He says, I will increase the number of men and animals upon you, and they will be fruitful and become numerous. I will settle people on you as in the past, and make you prosper more than before. Then you will know that I am the Lord. And that's going on right now in Israel. They are so prosperous. Every farmer wants to go to Israel to learn how to irrigate dry land. Everybody in the technology world wants to go to Tel Aviv and find out what's going to be next in the area of technology. It's just absolutely incredible what's happening there. And once again, as I mentioned earlier, these are being noticed by the Jews, not by us as the Christians. And it's absolutely, it's just astounding, this movement that's taken place, because now they've begun to look for their Messiah, which tells me we could be very, very close to the return of Jesus Christ. All right, how about Isaiah 41? I've taught you all this one before. It's that the trees would again grow in Israel. And this was the same prophet Isaiah we talked about earlier. This has been fulfilled since 1948. The prophet talks about a future restoration of Israel, that they build forests, and they had no forest. When they came into this land in 1948, it was barren, dry land. But because they've built a network of irrigation systems and through the technology of what's called drip irrigation, they have planted more than 200 million trees. Try to wrap your mind around that. 200 million trees in the nation of Israel. You drive through there today, you can drive through forests. It's incredible. And Isaiah 41 prophesied, and he said, I will make rivers flow on barren heights and springs with valleys. I will turn the desert into pools of water and the parched ground into springs. I will put in the desert, here it comes, the cedar tree, the acacia tree, the myrtle tree, and the olive tree. I will set pine trees in the wasteland, the fir and the cypress together, so that people may see and know, may consider and understand that the hand of the Lord has done this, that the Holy One of Israel has created it. Folks, listen, we are living in the end of days of human history. Jesus Christ is soon to return. When I was in Israel recently, we were driving through the desert area, and one of the Jewish people that was with us was talking about how they got the trees planted there in the desert. He said in 1947, before they became a nation, the United Nations saw all these Jewish people going home, and they said, we have to have something for them to do. And somebody came up with this brilliant idea, send them out in the desert to have them plant trees, not even realizing they were fulfilling God's prophetic timeline, God's prophetic plan for the end of days. And so when you drive through there today, it is a forest. It's unbelievable. I hope you're getting the sense of urgency that what these are talking about, these prophetic events, we as a church, we have always recognized them, but it's the Jews who are recognizing them now. It's unbelievable. And how about this one? Jerusalem would become the world's most religious site. This comes right out of the book of Micah. And in Micah chapter 4, verse 1, He says that the Temple Mount in Jerusalem would become the focal point of the world. Well, guess what? Ding, ding, that one's happened. That has absolutely happened. That 35 acres of ground is the most fought over, sought over piece of land on the planet. The author Joel Rosenberg talks about, in his book called The Epicenter, he talks about Israel being the center of the world, Jerusalem being the center of Israel, and the Temple Mount being the center of Jerusalem. And that has happened, and Jerusalem has become the most important religious site in the world. It's the most religious site for the Muslims, it's the most for the Catholics, it's the most for the Christians. This is going to continue. Jerusalem will be the millstone hung around the neck of the world, because that's what's been prophesied by Micah. Christians and Jews, keep this in mind, regard the city as the world's most important. So does Islam. So you got these three major religions, Christian, Jews, and Islam, that all want to claim that city for their own, but it is the Jewish people's capital. It is their holy city, and no other city in the world, has a focal point in religion like Jerusalem does. And here in Micah chapter 4, verse 1, it says, the prophet said that the Temple Mount in Jerusalem would become the focal point of the world, and it has not completely been fulfilled yet, but it is going to be, because Jerusalem is always the place they want to divide. This is where the Palestinians want to divide it up and call it their capital. Well, no, it's not going to happen. God gave that to the Jewish people. And here's the verse. It said, in the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as chief among the mountains. It will be raised above the hills, and people will stream to it. Right out of Micah chapter 4, verse 1. And then let's move on to Ezekiel 29, where it says that Egypt would never again rule over the nations. Well, that doesn't happen anymore, does it? Egypt was the world power at one time. They're not anymore. For the past 2,500 years, they have been controlled by so many other foreign powers, like the Romans, the Ottomans, the Europeans, even the Americans. Today, they're independent, but in 1948, 1967, 1973, it was Egypt who tried to dominate Israel, and they were unsuccessful each and every time, because the fact that Egypt got decimated by the Jews, even though they were 10 times larger than Israel, and that is the Ezekiel prophecy coming to life. Egypt no longer rules over any nations. And that text says it will be the lowliest of kingdoms, and will never again exalt itself over the nations. I will make it so weak that it will never again rule over the nations. And that has already happened. Once again, this is the third time I've said this to you. Who is noticing this? It's not us, the church. It's not us just as Bible students. This is the Jews who are recognizing these things, and they are preparing themselves for the return of their Messiah. And Zechariah now prophesied that the Jews would return to Jerusalem. This is in Zechariah chapter 8. In Zechariah 8, the prophet said God would bring the Jews back from the east and the west to their homeland, Israel, and they would be able to live in the old city of Jerusalem again. Well, that's already taken place. That was fulfilled in 1967. Now, nation of Israel became a nation in 1948, but for the next 19 years, they did not have Jerusalem. And then the paratroopers came in, and the Haganah, they called them, and they came in and they recaptured Jerusalem for the first time in 2,000 years. And now Jerusalem is it is the capital. It has been given back to Jerusalem, or to the Jewish people. And today there's over 1 million Jews that are living in that area right there. It's incredible, folks. It's absolutely incredible. You can go to the old city of Jerusalem and you can see it for yourself. It is so astounding to see the Jews back in their homeland and back in their city and reclaiming what God said he would give to them. This is Zechariah chapter 8, verses 7 and 8. And it says this. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will save my people from the countries of the east and the west. I will bring them back to live in Jerusalem. They will be my people, and I will be faithful and righteous to them as their God. Unbelievable. I've been there. I've walked through the Jewish quarter. These folks are home in their homeland. It is so heartwarming to see this, because this is the people who for 2,000 years did not have a home. And now they've got the Western Wall to go to worship and to pray. But soon and very soon, they're going to have their temple. And it will be raised up right exactly where God is intending for it to be. And it will be right there on that 35-acre complex known as the Temple Mount today. The golden dome of the rock will be destroyed. The Temple Mount will be the place where the Jews will build the third and final temple. And I believe you and I are going to see that in our lifetime because of all the preparation that has gone into building this third temple. They are ready to go. They're ready to tear down the Golden Dome of the Rock and put up the third temple. And when that happens, you can almost guarantee they're going to usher in the final end time events that Jesus Christ prophesied back in Matthew chapter 24. When he talks about the abomination of desolation. That's coming because the temple has to be there for the Antichrist to go in and say, I am God, worship me. But keep in mind, again, I've told you this is the fourth time. I'm just really trying to drive this point home. This is being noticed by the Jewish people. It's unbelievable. Lastly, and then we'll move on here, Isaiah again foretold that the worldwide return of the Jews would happen in the nation of Israel. That did happen, 1948, and it even happens today. The prophet Isaiah said that the Jews would return to their homeland from the east, the north, the south. All of the parts of the world would give up the Jews, and after 2,000 years of being scattered virtually to every country in the world, they are now back home in their homeland. You've heard me say that so many times, over and over and over again. They're back home in their homeland. They're coming from Ethiopia. They're coming from Russia. They're coming from all over Europe, from Scandinavia, from China. There's an entire Asian culture that's moving there, from South Africa, from America. In Isaiah 43 it says, do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bring your children from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth. And that has happened in our lifetime, folks. It's really astounding to watch this. It's astounding to see Israel's deserts become like the Garden of Eden again that was prophesied by Isaiah 51. It's incredible to see Zechariah prophesy that Jerusalem would be the home of the Jews again, and that's taken place. Or Egypt would never rule over any nation again, and they don't. Or that Jerusalem would become the world's most important religious site, and it is. Or that Israel's fruit would fill the world, and it has. And that trees again would grow in Israel, and they have. It's incredible to see them and lay your hands on them. And Ezekiel prophesied that they would be very, very prosperous, and they are. And that the ruins would be rebuilt, and you can walk through them today and lay your hands on them. Or that Israel would prevail over their enemies, and they do each and every time, whether it was the 6-Day War, the Yom Kippur War, the Lebanon War, the War of Independence. It didn't matter. They are prevailing over their enemies every day. And we don't have to worry about the Jews. Matter of fact, something kind of funny, I saw a t-shirt, and I had to buy it, and it was a black t-shirt with a war airplane on it. It says, don't worry, America, Israel has your back. I thought, how true is that? The God of gods, the King of kings, has his hand over that nation because that is his chosen people and their chosen land, his chosen land, put his chosen people there, and they are back home in their homeland. So what are we to do as the church right now? We're to read Genesis chapter 12 where it says, I will bless those who bless Israel, and I will curse those who curse Israel. I want to be part of the blessing. How about you? I want to be lifting them up. I want to be going over there and praying for them and giving to them. And I just want to be part of this movement. I want to see Jesus Christ be ushered in through the obedience of his children. This is becoming very, very exciting times. Jesus Christ is returning soon. Now let me leave you with this parting thought. We only have a couple minutes left. This ministry that you're listening to is called Until He Returns. We believe and we teach that Jesus Christ will return in our lifetime. We believe that. We're pre-tribulational, pre-rapture doctrinally, and we believe that the rapture of the church is the next big thing to happen on the timeline of human history. We need to get this message out to as many people as we can get it out to. We are nothing if we don't have our supporters. I know every ministry is asking for support, and we're no different. The difference between our ministry and a lot of other ministries is we are completely volunteer. Every dollar that you give into this ministry goes completely to helping get the gospel of Jesus Christ and the message of his soon return to a lost and dying world. We have no paid staff. We have no office we have to supply. The only cost that we have are these radio programs in our classroom settings. That's it. So I'm asking you, would you please pray about giving into this ministry? In order to keep us on whatever radio station you're listening to, we need to have your funds, of course. We need to have your prayers. But we're asking that you would be obedient to the Lord should he lay it upon your heart to give into this ministry. This is something that's hard for us to do, to ask for this, but we are truly believing that Jesus Christ has us in this specific time for a specific reason, giving the message of his soon return to a lost and dying world. So church, would you join us? If you're willing to donate into this ministry, you can give on the website at untilhereturnsforyou.info. That's until he returns, the number 4, the letter U.info. Or you can send your donation to P.O. Box 192, Morton, Illinois 61550. Once again, P.O. Box 192, Morton, Illinois 61550. This is our strong plea to help keep us on the radio. We believe these are the end days, and we want to see Jesus Christ ushered in. All right, church. Until we meet again, you keep looking up, because our redemption draws nigh.